He was always the good husband, patient, trusting, and quiet. But when Arya, his wife, packed her bags for a harmless trip with friends, including the ex she swore was just a friend, something inside him snapped. She thought she could push him again, like always. What she didn't know was that while she was boarding her flight, he was changing the locks, boxing up her things, and preparing divorce papers. And when she came back, nothing would ever be the same. This isn't just a story of betrayal. It's a story of a man who finally stood up, and what happened when she realized she had pushed too far. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watched this video from. Now, let's get started. My name is Alexander, and for the majority of my marriage, I genuinely believed I was doing everything right as a husband. I've always been someone who trusts easily, who believes in giving people the benefit of the doubt. I never saw the need to snoop through my wife's phone or question her whereabouts. To me, a good husband respected boundaries, avoided unnecessary conflict, and didn't succumb to petty jealousy. But looking back, maybe I was too permissive. My wife, Arya, isn't a bad person, but she has a way of pushing limits, seeing how far she can go before facing consequences. Sometimes it was minor, buying things we didn't need, coming home later than she promised. Other times, it was more intentional, as if she was testing whether I'd finally put my foot down. And then, there was Brian. I had long suspected that Brian was more than just a lingering presence from her past. He was her ex, and no matter how much time had passed, I knew men like him didn't just hang around for no reason. They wait. They hover in the background under the guise of friendship, patiently biding their time for an opportunity. I had voiced my concerns before, made it clear that I didn't trust him. Each time, Arya brushed it off as paranoia. "You're imagining things, Alexander. He's just a friend," she'd say, wielding the usual dismissive reassurances meant to make me feel like I was being unreasonable. And for too long, I let it slide. I convinced myself I was overthinking, that I was projecting insecurities. But trust has limits, and she was about to find out exactly where mine ended. One evening, while we were unwinding in the living room, she casually mentioned a trip her college friends were planning, a weekend at a beach house in the Bahamas, a chance to reminisce, unwind, and relive old memories. On the surface, it sounded harmless. I never had a problem with her spending time with friends. We always valued independence in our marriage, and I never tried to control her. But then she mentioned a detail that made my stomach tighten. Brian would be there. The moment she said his name, I understood that this wasn't just a passing update. She was watching me, waiting to gauge my reaction. This wasn't simply about the trip, it was another test. For years, I had been clear about how I felt regarding Brian. I wasn't a jealous man, but I wasn't oblivious either. He wasn't just an innocent friend. He was someone waiting for his opportunity. And this time, I wasn't going to act like I didn't see it. But I also didn't respond the way she expected. I didn't argue. I didn't recount all the times I had overlooked her choices. Instead, I met her gaze and said, "If you go, don't come back." She blinked, momentarily stunned, then scoffed. "Oh, come on, Alexander, don't be ridiculous." The usual excuses followed, the same ones she always used to downplay my concerns. "You're being dramatic. Brian is just a friend. Stop being so insecure." But this time, I didn't engage. I didn't plead my case. I simply kept my voice steady and told her, "Do what you want." And I meant it. She assumed I was bluffing, like every time before. She had no idea that this time I was finished playing along. The morning of the trip, Arya moved around the house as if everything was normal. She hummed to herself while packing, neatly folding her clothes and pausing occasionally to check her phone, likely responding to messages from her friends about their upcoming weekend. Every so often she glanced at me, waiting for a reaction, expecting me to issue a final warning. But I remained silent. I just watched. Once she finished packing, she wheeled her suitcase to the door, then approached me and pressed a quick kiss to my cheek, as though my ultimatum had never been spoken. "Love you," she said lightly before grabbing her keys and stepping outside. I didn't reply. I simply stood by the window and watched as she loaded her luggage into the taxi, slipped into the passenger seat, and disappeared down the road. The moment she was gone, I got to work. First, I changed the locks. I had scheduled a locksmith the day before, and within the hour the house was secured. Next, I gathered her belongings, clothes, shoes, toiletries, carefully packing everything into boxes. I wanted her to have no excuse to return, not even for a forgotten sweater. The last step was the divorce papers. That morning, I called my lawyer and instructed him to prepare the documents. There was no hesitation, no second guessing. I wasn't making empty threats. I had warned her. She had made her choice. Arya believed that nothing would change when she came back, that she could go on her trip, laugh with her friends, enjoy her time with Brian, and still return to the life she had taken for granted. She was wrong. She was certain she had me figured out, that I would sulk for a few days, maybe ignore her at most, before inevitably giving in, just as I always had. But this time, she miscalculated. This time, I refused to be the man who allowed his wife to walk all over him. I wouldn't play the part of the devoted husband who endured her disrespect, only to welcome her back with open arms. I had drawn a line, and she had brazenly stepped over it. Now, she was about to understand what that meant. The morning she was due to return, Arya barely crossed my mind as I headed to work. As far as I was concerned, she was a relic of the past. My decision had been made, my plans put into motion, and my future set on a new course. I assumed she was still at the beach house, blissfully unaware that by the time she returned, nothing would be the same. But then, on the fourth day, 3 days ahead of schedule, she arrived. I wouldn't have known had it not been for the security camera I'd installed outside. A notification popped up on my phone while I was having lunch. Out of nothing more than idle curiosity, I checked the live feed. There she was, standing on the porch, her luggage by her feet, one hand gripping the doorknob. She turned it. Nothing happened. She tried again, and again, and again. I watched as her expression shifted from confusion to disbelief. She leaned in closer, inspecting the lock, and then it hit her. The locks had been changed. Panic flashed across her face as she scrambled for her phone. Moments later, mine vibrated in my hand. I let it ring a few times before finally answering. "Alexander," she exhaled, her voice unsteady. "I can't get in." "You don't live there anymore," I replied, my tone even, distant. "Your things are at your parents' place. You'll receive the divorce papers in a week or two." A silence stretched between us, heavy with her quiet, uneven breaths as she tried to process what I had just said. Then her voice shifted, pleading, desperate. "Alexander, please, just let me—" I hung up before she could finish. My phone immediately buzzed again. Once, twice, over and over. Her name kept flashing on the screen, but I ignored every call. After the 6th attempt, I switched my phone to Do Not Disturb. Whatever excuse she had prepared, I wasn't interested. Then came the messages. "Alexander, please talk to me. I messed up. I'm so sorry. It's not what you think." I watched the notifications flood in, but I felt nothing. Not anger, not sadness, just a hollow detachment. This was the same woman who had laughed when I told her not to go. The same woman who kissed me goodbye. convinced that I would never actually act on my words. And now she was begging me to listen. A new message appeared. Please pick up. There's something I need to tell you. Still, I didn't react. Instead, I reopened the camera feed. Arya was pacing, her face flushed, hands shaking. She looked frantic. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she pounded on the door, shouting my name, pleading for me to answer. Then, suddenly, the messages stopped. A voice note appeared. I hesitated for a moment before pressing play. Her voice crackled through the speaker, thick with sobs, desperation woven into every word. Alexander, please listen to me. She gasped for air, barely able to speak. You were right about Brian. I should have listened. I never thought this would happen. Her breath hitched, her words fractured. I drank too much, and when I woke up, it was... A choked sob cut through the recording. Brian did something. He recorded it. He's blackmailing me. A pause. Then, barely a whisper. I'm telling you now because I don't want you to hear it from someone else. Another wave of tears overtook her. Please, Alexander. I don't know what to do. I need you. I swear I never meant for this to happen. She was reaching for salvation, hoping that because she had suffered, I would rush to her rescue, that I would clean up the mess she had made. I listened to the entire message, absorbing every word, letting them settle. Then, I typed my final response, the last thing I would ever say to her. Enjoy your life, Arya. You made your choice. Now live with it. With that, I blocked her. I never looked back. Not once did I wonder how she was doing or if she was okay. I had wasted enough time giving her chances, only to be made a fool. She had made her bed. Now she would have to lie in it. The days that followed were unexpectedly serene. The quiet in my home was not lonely. It was freeing. The weight of her presence, the suffocating tension that had loomed for months, was gone. For the first time in a long while, I could breathe. But peace is a fragile thing. It wasn't that I missed her. I didn't. It was the betrayal that gnawed at me, festering like an unhealed wound. The knowledge of what she had done, what she had been so willing to do, lingered. She had gone off for her little weekend of deception, fully believing I would sit idly by, waiting for her return like some lovesick fool. She had underestimated me. She had been wrong. She had been wrong. I owed her nothing. Not an explanation. Not another moment of my time. There would be no more second-guessing, no more wondering if I had been too harsh. I was finished with her deception, done sacrificing my own well-being just to maintain her comfort. For too long, I had been the steady force she relied upon, her sanctuary in the storm. But that role no longer belonged to me. Now, I was someone different, someone who had chosen himself. Days passed sluggishly, and eventually, Arya's messages stopped. She understood, at last, that I wouldn't bend. But then, the inevitable happened. A knock at the door. It came sooner than I expected, sooner than I would have liked. Of course, Arya was never one to slip away quietly. She was grasping at the remnants of control, making one final desperate bid to reclaim her influence. I was in the living room, a warm cup of coffee in my hands, when the doorbell rang. I froze, listening. No deliveries were scheduled, and I hadn't invited anyone over. Setting my mug on the table, I moved silently toward the entrance, peering through the peephole. And there she was. Arya stood on the porch, her hands trembling, dark circles shadowing her eyes. It was clear she hadn't slept in days. The sight of her gave me pause. This was a version of her I hadn't seen in years. But that brief flicker of familiarity did not erase the truth. She was no longer the woman I had once cherished. The girl I had loved was gone. In her place stood someone who thought she could reappear as if nothing had changed, as if she could demand my attention, and expect me to yield. My fingers hovered over the doorknob. For a fleeting second, that old instinct stirred, the reflex to let her in, to believe that maybe, just maybe, what was broken could still be mended. We had shared so much, years of our lives entwined. A part of me longed to believe that it wasn't all beyond repair. But then I remembered. I remembered how easily she had let me go, how little my presence had meant when she had a choice. No, I wouldn't make that mistake again. I opened the door just enough to face her. She stepped forward, her breath unsteady, her eyes pleading. "Alexander," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper, "please, we need to talk." I didn't move. My arms remained crossed, my posture unwavering. "No, Arya." She blinked, as though she had misheard me. "What do you mean? We can fix this. We can figure it out, together." The desperation in her voice might have been convincing once, but not now. I recognized the game. It was the same tired manipulation, twisting the situation, making me feel like the villain for standing my ground. She wanted me to believe that refusing her was cruel, that walking away was an act of malice. "I don't want to fix anything," I said, my voice void of warmth. "You made your choice. You left. Now live with it." She recoiled, clearly not expecting such finality. For a moment she seemed lost, the weight of reality crashing down on her, but she wasn't finished yet. "Alexander, please," she tried again, her voice cracking. "I made a mistake. I thought I needed something different, something new. I never meant to hurt you. I just needed to feel alive again." I exhaled, the sound sharp. "No, Arya, this wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal, and you don't get to act like it never happened." Her expression shifted, shock giving way to fear. For the first time, she seemed to grasp the full weight of what she had done. She had always assumed she could sway me, that I would always forgive, always welcome her back with open arms. But not this time. This time, she saw the truth. "You've changed," she whispered. I thought you'd understand." A dry chuckle escaped me. "That's the problem, isn't it? You never thought I'd finally say enough." The silence between us stretched, heavy and unyielding. I watched as her mind raced, searching for an opening, for some way to turn the situation to her advantage. She still believed she could break me, that I would cave and let her back in. But I wasn't that man anymore. I had already walked away from our marriage once. There was no reason to step back into it just to suffer the same fate again. I took a step back, my grip tightening on the door. "There's no second chance, Arya. Not with me." Her face twisted in disbelief. "This isn't fair. You can't just throw everything away." I met her gaze, steady and unflinching. "I didn't throw anything away. You did." Her face crumpled, and for the first time, something genuine flickered in her eyes. Regret. But it was too late. It would always be too late. I shut the door and locked it behind me. I heard her sobbing on the other side, but it didn't matter. The hardest part was over. I had reclaimed my life, and I wasn't turning back. I walked away, my heart pounding. But for the first time in ages, it wasn't from pain. It wasn't sorrow. It wasn't betrayal. It was the sudden, unexpected lightness of being free from a burden I hadn't even known I was carrying. The tension of her lies, the suffocating grip of her constant manipulation, and at last, the emptiness she left behind. It had all dissipated. I could finally breathe. I sank into the couch, the silence folding around me. But for once, it didn't feel suffocating. This silence wasn't hollow. It was mine. It was something I had earned. I picked up my drink, savoring it, letting the warmth seep into my bones, welcoming the stillness like an old companion I hadn't seen in years. Then, my phone vibrated. I didn't need to look. I already knew. It was her. But this time, I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say, no words that could undo what had already been done. She had spoken through her actions, louder and clearer than any apology ever could. Without a second thought, I shut the phone off, watching as the screen faded to black. The weight had lifted. That chapter of my life was over. Now it was my turn, to move forward, to rediscover myself, to finally live without bending to someone else's expectations. Arya had made her decision, and now I was making mine. This story has come to an end. No matter how much you forgive or stay silent, if someone keeps crossing the line, you have every right to say, enough. Self-respect is more important than holding on to people who don't value you. Sometimes, choosing yourself and walking away is the only way to find peace and start living again. Don't be afraid to put yourself first. Don't be afraid to end what's hurting you, because the person who truly loves you will never force you to choose between them and your own dignity. Protect your heart, always. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you liked this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.